3rd and 3. Including this one for the Florida Gators. Throws to Jefferson. Huge kick. 20-yard line. Going to take it to Dawson. Touchdown. The Gators have the lead.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Top 25 Breakdown. Today we have number 8, Florida, heading to the SEC. Another very good SEC team, and we're getting closer and closer to number 1.
Getting really close, really close.
Really close to number 1.
Getting excited as we wrap it up.
Yeah, because all the good teams are now coming up.
The elites.
Elite teams, yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at the 2018 season for Florida, they had really good wins, I would say, against Tennessee, Mississippi State, LSU, surprising LSU, Vanderbilt, and then having a little bump with Missouri. A lot of people thought that Florida should have beat Missouri because it was at home.
Right.
But then they lost to Georgia the week prior. But they did beat a very good Michigan team. They gave them really much a stomping.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will say that Michigan team was missing a lot of players just because some kids don't want to play in the bowl game anymore. So.
Yeah, kind of protecting themselves for the NFL. Right.
Right.
But good thing for Florida is that they return a lot of good bodies, starting with Felipe Franks, Van Jefferson, Kadarius Toney, Trayvon Grimes, Lamichael Pirine, C.J. Henderson, Marco Wilson, Trey Dean III.
And they also bring back Malik Davis, Damian Pierce, and the running back positions. On the line, they bring back Nick Buchanan, Stone Forsythe, sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. Moving on to the defense, they bring back Jawan Taylor, Brad Stewart, Donovan Stonier, Jabari Zuniga, Jonathan Greenard, and David Reese.
Yeah, they bring back a lot of good talent. And I think that the number 1 strength on offense would be quarterback, because from year 1 to year 2, Felipe Franks did improve a lot.
Yep.
Especially with Dan Mullen, and especially with being Dan Mullen system in year 2.
Yep.
I think that's going to be very beneficial for Felipe Franks. I think you're going to see a bit better play from the quarterback position, because last year he was a bit inconsistent and overthrew balls at times. But we will definitely see a more improved Franks, hopefully a more improved Franks.
Hopefully a more improved accurate passer and a more improved, hopefully he'll be able to fill in that leadership role that the team needs. So.
Right. I would say another strength is skill positions like wide receiver and running back. Van Jefferson and Kadarius Toney and Trayvon Grimes should be huge pieces for Frank. When you have weapons to use, it kind of elevates your game.
Right, and like you just mentioned about the receivers, the top 6 pass catchers of this team last year are returning, so the offense will be electric in the air. So it just makes the entire offense, I guess, easier for Franks to mesh well.
And they also have a really good running back with Lamichael Pirine, who can take some pressure off of Franks whenever they're on first and goal or whatever.
Second and short, something
right,
like that.
So it's something like really good back to kind of ease up the pressure off of him and kind of put a little more pressure on defenses to come and stop the run, because Lamichael Pirine is a very good back and should have a really good season this year.
Right, and not only do they have Lamichael Pirine, they do have Malik Davis and Damian Pierce. All these running backs are all reliable running backs that you can trust to move the chains when needed, and like you mentioned, just ease up on the pressure for forcing Felipe Franks to have to throw the ball consecutively.
Right, and also, yeah, like you mentioned, Damian Pierce and also Malik Davis, they're really good backs. They're going to be in the rotation in that backfield, so it's going to be a really good backfield.
And then a strength that I saw for this team is that Florida possesses one of the most talented secondaries in the country. Again, I think most people know, most college football fans know that this is a team that's considered in the DBU conversation.
Right.
Either they are or they're not. It doesn't really matter, because this is going to be a stellar secondary. It's going to be a no-fly zone when teams come over to Florida, or when teams just face Florida, because the secondary is going to be pretty remarkable. And then another strength that I saw was his coaching itself. Dan Mullen is a great coach. He made Mississippi State a top 25 regular team. Maybe Mississippi State is taking some steps downwards now, but when Dan Mullen was there, they were pretty prolific with Dak Prescott and whatnot. Dan Mullen is looking to bring Florida back to their former elite status, and on top of that, either if he can or he can't, Dan Mullen is a great coach, and he knows how to win, and he knows how to recruit players.
And he coached with Urban Meyer when they won those 2 national titles at Florida. So there's still that kind of, he was the play caller, he was the offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach that coached Tim Tebow, which was a really good quarterback for Florida and just overall college football.
The GOAT. Give praise to the GOAT.
But moving on to concerns, I would say my number one concern for defense is, I think, depth at linebacker and D-line.
Yeah.
They do have David Reese II at linebacker and edge players like Jabari Zuniga and Jonathan Greenard. but they need to develop depth at linebacker and interior D-line, especially in the SEC when there's teams that are going to pound the rock, especially like Kentucky. They're going to be run heavy. Georgia's going to be should be run heavy, and LSU's going to be run heavy. It's not to say that their D-line is like inexperienced or they don't have any depth. It's just like the interior D-line, whereas the nose tackle and then the D tackle, they don't have a lot of depth there. And I think when teams are going to run down the middle, that's going to be a pretty big deal, especially if you can't stop that.
They might get exploited. Yeah.
Right. But recently they got Brenton Cox to transfer to Florida, so if he gets his eligibility for this year, I think that linebacker depth kind of improves, and I think Brenton Cox would be a huge player to Florida.
And if he does to get that waiver, he's going to start immediately, I think. So.
Right, and the NCAA is so weird on this immediate eligibility, so we don't know if he's going to get it or not, but if he does, this defense should be really good.
Very good. My biggest concern that I saw for this Florida team is going to be the O-line, in my opinion. They do lose 4 of their 5 stars, and they have to fill those holes very quickly. And I have read up, and I saw some news that the O-line is looking pretty good. They did look good in the spring. Hopefully they've solved all their issues. They ironed out all the wrinkles, and they're able to mesh well, communicate with each other, and just play well, just play ball. So the questions that I have for this O-line really is that will they give enough protection for Philippe Franks to get the ball out of his hands? And then the other question I have is that will they be able to open up gaps when they need them? So that it's just hard to replace 4 out of 5 starters and be able to be at the same type of caliber you were last year. Hoping for the best for this O-line. Hopefully they ironed out all the wrinkles.
Right, that's a really good question that you asked. Can they open up gaps, especially when they go up against Georgia, who has a very good front?
Yep.
7 very talented linebackers, very good defensive line, big defensive line. Can they push those guys to make enough space for Lamichael Pirine to get some yards?
To get some yards, or in critical conditions, the first down, maybe a 4th and 1 or anything like that. So.
Right.
And then finally, my last concern is the schedule. It's brutal. It's always brutal. It's going to be brutal. You're playing the SEC. They take trips to LSU, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Mizzou. But they do have Tennessee and Auburn and Florida State at home. But even then, you're like I said, like I just mentioned, you're in the SEC. You're gonna have a tough schedule. You're gonna be going through the gauntlet. So it's just about having that endurance, being able to withstand and outlast your SEC opponents. So again, the schedule. If you're an SEC team, your schedule is always gonna be tough. This is most likely the #1 conference in the country. It's always going to be the best, and you're going to be playing against the best.
Right. The conference gets a little too much hype from media, but overall, this conference is very good.
Very good.
But that's a whole different issue, or a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
But 2019 schedule, like you mentioned, they do have trips to Kentucky, LSU, and South Carolina, Missouri. But they do start with a really good game against Miami, which should be very interesting to see how that defensive front for Miami does against the offensive line.
It's a week 0 game. It's real exciting. Really exciting. All eyes will be on this game.
Right, and then they have a bye. Then they host UT Martin at Kentucky. At Kentucky could be the real test. Kentucky has shown that they could run the ball effectively. They did also beat Florida in the swamp last year.
They did.
This year it's at home for Kentucky, so that'll be very good for them. Tennessee, Towson, Auburn, at LSU, at South Carolina. At LSU is going to be tough. It's a crazy atmosphere over there.
Death Valley is always tough. Yep.
LSU is getting much better, and then also Auburn, who has been said that they have one of the best defenses in the SEC.
Yeah, and that's what's being said. They do return a lot of production out there, and they do have some really good, talented young guys at the quarterback position. So just keep an eye out for Auburn to probably contend for their division.
Right, and then they have a bye right before Georgia, which is going to be huge, a huge game because they could go both undefeated into this game, and whoever wins this game could be the SEC East champion. After that, they host Vanderbilt, and then they go to Missouri, bye, and then Florida State. Missouri could be a very interesting game just because it's one of those games that Missouri is not playing a bowl. They have a postseason ban.
Yeah.
So this could be Missouri's basically almost like their Super Bowl. They could just go all out for this game, and it could ruin Florida's season if they did beat Georgia.
You're right. This could be their Super Bowl. Just like you mentioned, they do have a postseason ban. This team, Missouri, is a team that's gonna try to play spoiler for everybody in the SEC. They're just gonna want to try to win, and they have Kelly Bryant now at the helm. Now that Drew Lock has departed and went to the NFL, got drafted, and on top of that, the offense pretty much stayed put, and then they added Kelly Bryant there. So the offense could be very high-powered and could honestly ruin some players, some teams'
seasons.
Yeah, their chances. I also like that they start the game, they start and end their seasons with their rivals. So they play Miami and they play Florida State at the end of it. So that's just always nice to see that team does that. So
right, and it'll be very interesting to watch that Florida State game. We will see a Florida State that's been improved, that should have been improved throughout the whole season.
Right.
And then at the end of the season, they should be hopefully a lot more improved than what they were last year.
Yeah, hopefully.
But looking at the schedule, what do you think worst case scenario is?
Worst case scenario for this team, I'm thinking 8-4. They're still going to have a winning season. They're still going to be very good. I think they lose the Auburn game, the LSU, Georgia, and maybe the Missouri game if Missouri wants to show up just to play ball.
Right, I agree with you. I think they go 8-4. Although I will say that I think they lose at Kentucky, and then they lose to LSU and Georgia, and then probably Missouri. But what do you most likely think will happen?
Most likely, I'm thinking this team can go 9-3, 10-2. The 3 losses coming to Auburn, LSU, Georgia, or if it's a 10-2, if it's my 10-2 prediction, I think they lose to Georgia or an LSU game. I just don't think this team is good enough to beat Georgia. I think Georgia is catching up to Alabama. I think they're getting there, and I think we all know the disparity between Alabama and the rest of the college football world, or Alabama and Clemson and the rest of the college football world, and Georgia's getting close to that disparity. And I think Georgia kind of is the ruler of the SEC East. I don't think Florida's good enough to get there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with you. 9-3. I think they lose to LSU, Georgia, and I would say most likely at Missouri. I think Missouri's a very underrated team, and also they have nothing to play for. So they could literally ruin everybody's season by beating everybody.
Right, they're just trying to go 12-0, not go to the bowl, not go anywhere. They can go 12-0 and probably not get into the SEC championship game. I think that's part of the postseason.
Right.
And just sit pretty with 12-0 record.
Right, but what's the best case scenario for Florida?
Best case scenario, it's 11-1. This team's very good, very high power. As long as they can successfully replace the O-lineman that they lost, this team's gonna lose to Georgia. Like I just mentioned, they're going to lose to Georgia. They're going to be very good, but lose to Georgia, and just because they lose that game, you're not going to win the division. You're not going to the SEC championship game. Hate to break it to you.
Yeah, I would say 10-2. 11-1 seems like a possibility, but I'm going to go with 10-2 just because the SEC is a lot tougher, a little bit tougher than most conferences, and I think they lose, 2 times, and I would say they lose at LSU because it's going to be a very crazy atmosphere there, and I think they lose to Georgia, but they finished 10-2. This team is very good. SEC East is getting much better. It used to be just Georgia running through it like a breeze. Now there's some challenges there for Georgia.
Now we're hoping that Florida can contend with Georgia for the SEC East because I'm kind of tired of watching Alabama and Georgia in the conference championship game all the time. Yeah. But nonetheless, it's always a great game to watch that.
It's always a very good game. Now Georgia has to go through Florida. Florida's improved on recruiting and also play calling with Dan Mullen, so it's a very good team. So thanks guys for watching this video. If you guys liked it, give us a thumbs up, subscribe because it helps us out, and comment below. Tell us what you think about Florida and if they can contend with Georgia this year. Thanks guys.